started. This morning we are opening up once again with Peter Drucker. We are on Module 4, implementing the plan. Let's go over our learning objectives. Turn to page 49 in the great participant manual. Learning objectives. Participants will understand the importance of appraising the plan prior to implementation. Be introduced to Reginald Carter and the 7 key questions used to support planning and management. We'll be able to identify outcome indicators. Practice creating outcome indicators by identifying these outcomes and strategies. Introduced to the standard set of performance indicators established for all CAAs. Participants will be able to relate local indicators to the standard set of performance indicators known as national performance indicators. And if you look at the assessment workbook, Peter Drucker poster, you'll see that question 2, 3, 4, and 5 all tie back into what is our mission. Let's turn to page 50. And let me have Thorne to read the first 2 paragraphs.
Dunker tells us that the written plan will help us get the right things done. Also reminds us of the importance of involvement of the agency board of directors. Continue. The self-assessment process leads to a plan that is a coincide summation of the organization's purpose and future direction. The development and formal adoption of missions and goals are fundamentally to effective governance of nonprofit organization and are primary responsibilities of the board. Therefore, these strategies, elements of the plan must be approved by the board.
So let me repeat again. The self-assessment process leads to a plan that is a concise summation of the organization's purpose and future direction. This is the last Drucker question. What is our plan? This is the last Drucker question. It is the bridge between creating a plan and implementing a plan. The board of directors should be involved in the ROMA cycle. The plan should be a living document. In the indication of the core activities of the eligible entities, IM 49 specifically identifies these activities as the responsibility of the entity and its board. The plan is our guide towards implementing and reporting. Let me have a person to read the next paragraph, the written plan. Stephanie.
Oh, yeah.
Page 50.
50? The written plan,
Right here.
oh, okay.
Right here.
The written plan isn't about having strategies and outcomes fixed for all time in a document, but more about providing the ability to continually refer back to the plan as you move forward. You will review and appraise the value of each element so you can update it as data is collected and analyzed. The plan must be flexible enough to reflect community changes around you. True self-assessment is never finished. Leadership requires that constant resharpening, refocusing, never really been satisfied. Drucker, page 56.
Okay. Go right to the last paragraph.
According to the information memorandum 49, the plan should take into account strategy that use existing resource and the development new ones to address needs. The relationships of activities supported by the agency to other anti-poverty, community development service and community and the extended agency activity contribute to the accomplishment of one or more of 6 nation ROMA goals.
National 6 national goals.
6 national goals.
Okay. Okay. What I would say is that the Board of Directors, the Head Start Policy Council, Community Service Advisory Council must be involved with the agency plan. Because you got to remember that with your advisory council, some of those people are on the board. So you have some Head Start Policy Council person on the board. So all these, you have a mixture of people on the board, and they all should be knowledgeable and have part in the plan, including staff. Drucker supports our premise that outcome indicators and success cannot be developed in a vacuum. They must be embedded in the mission and need in the various situations facing the agency and the sources available to the agency. That means there must be a planning process in place in the agency to continuously review the appropriateness of the activities of the agency. Drucker provides some guidelines to set the stage for planning. Drucker stresses the importance of the board of directors in the planning process. It is the board that is primarily responsible for the development of the agency plan, and therefore the board must be active participant. This provides us as an opportunity to review the emphasis in our IM 49 on the core activities being the responsibility of the entity and its board. And so the ROMA cycle, right here, we've done an assessment, planning, now we're implementing services and strategies. Implementing the plan basically is about taking that plan, creating and putting it into practice based on our needs assessment. Let's go over to page 51. Okay, do you all have access to the agency strategic plan?
No.
How is the plan used by the agency? Nobody has
Yes.
knowledge? Okay. How is the plan used by the agency?
It's used to implement programs.
Okay. Does it guide the implementation of the services and strategies identified? Does it guide the collection and analysis of the data that will be used as evidence of results achieved?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Let's turn to page 51 and Carmen read the first 3 paragraphs. Reverend Johnson, the first 3 paragraphs on page 51.
Okay, a well-written plan leads to sound agency management and accountability, provided the plan is implemented well. Drucker cautions us, work doesn't get done by a magnificent statement of policy. Work is only done when it is done by people who are properly informed, assigned, and equipped. The nonprofit organization must be information-based. Information must flow from the individuals doing the work to the board management, and it must flow back as well.
Okay. As Reverend Johnson said, a well-written plan leads to sound agency management and accountability, provided the plan is implemented well. And information-based is sometimes referred to as data-driven. What we measure and how we measure it determines what will be considered relevant. Note GRUMPA. GRUMPA, it was enacted it is the Government Performance Results Act. It was enacted in 1993, designed to improve program management throughout the federal government. Agencies are required to develop a 5-year strategic plan outlining its mission, long-term goals for the agency's major function, performance measures, and operating results. So you do know that we have a 5-year strategic plan.
Yes, yes.
Okay, let me have Craig read from the agency's strategic plan,
The
that
agency,
paragraph.
the agency's strategic plan guides the implementation of your strategies to achieve results. But before you can implement your plan, you must understand the elements which must be operationalized for quality service delivery. These include identifying the fundamental elements necessary for implementation and identifying procedures and personnel for observation and reporting of results.
Okay. This concludes the Drucker question framework. I will now introduce you to Reginald Carter. 7 key questions. Just as the Drucker questions form the framework for the first 3 modules, you will see the Carter questions thread throughout the remaining modules. How many people have we moved out of poverty? Can anybody answer that? Not that many.
Or maybe not definitively, we really may not have the best way of measuring it.
Okay.
I'm sure we've helped lots.
Okay. How can a written plan help us be accountable agency? This is the bridge between results-oriented management and results-oriented accountability. I introduce you a little bit about Reginald Carter. Reginald Carter is a scholar who also designed principles for managing social sector organizations. He is an educator and a writer. Let's turn over to page 51. We have 52. We have help from Reginald Carter with some questions to guide us, and we consider how we will implement our plan. And this is Reginald Carter's poster. Number 1 is how many clients are you servicing? 2, who are they? 3, what services do you give them? 4, what does it cost? 5, what does it cost per service delivery? And what happens to the client as a result of the service, and what does it cost per outcome? Now, we're only dealing with question 1, 2, and 3, and 6 today. The rest of them are cost and impact questions. You'll see those in another module. On page 52, can I have Thornton to read the first 2 paragraphs?
Dr. Reginald Carter used his experience as the Director of Planning and Evaluation for the Michigan Department of Social Services as the basis for writing the Accountability Agency 1983. Carter states that each year when a program manager presents a budget for services to be implemented, there are 7 questions that should be asked. He proposes that all agencies should be able to answer these 7 questions in order to justify the budget amount that will support the activities of the agency.
Okay. You should always be able to answer these questions on the Reginald Carter poster. You should be able to answer those questions as you begin to implement your plan. These questions also frame criteria for accountability that includes efficiency and effectiveness measures. There are 2 ways to measure an agency: cost and impact, or efficiency and effectiveness. We will use the shaded questions in the introduction of ROMA and return to the budget cost questions later, as I mentioned. Identifying the number of participants who moved out of poverty is a real challenge to most agencies. As a national network, we have been criticized because we cannot provide this information. What are some of the reasons that this is difficult?
We need tracking to see how they have improved poverty, Susan. I guess some of them might relocate.
That's good. There is not a standard definition for out of poverty that all agree to 100% of poverty guideline. It's not considered by many to be an effective measure of all of the domains that impact on conditions of poverty. 2, Even if we use the CSBG eligibility level of 125% as a marker and say how many moved above 125%, many agencies cannot provide this information because they do not follow participants once they are no longer eligible for the service. If customers move above 125%, they no longer have a connection with our agency. Okay, so I'd like to thank you all for the start of an important discussion. We are now going to discuss some elements of our plan that we need to have in place so that the appraisal will be easier in the future. Let's move over to page 53. Let me have Lorraine start with the first two paragraphs. Yes.
How many clients are you servicing? The number of individual project to be served is often based on the budget and other resource data. This projected number is important as you implement your plan. Agency must be able to provide duplicate counts of their clients being served. Without this ability, clients may be counted multiple times.
Krista, can you read the next paragraph? If
Okay, if the agency does not have a common intake or common identification number, and each program or service assign their own identification number, the agency will, in all likelihood, have a duplicated client count. This is also known as a silo or smokestack approach.
to ensure an unduplicated count, each person, family is considered to be a client of the agency and not an individual program. In this method, they are assigned a single identification number, which would go along with the client to any program or service received. And what we use here is FastPro. There needs to be one database of communication within an agency, and we have that. There are other factors that will affect how the agency counts clients. The agency must determine when a person family becomes a client, which may vary by program. Lack of standardization may result in an undercounted of clients. Does receipt of any type of service qualify an individual as a client? Anybody else?
Yes.
Okay. For example, if the service is for information only or a brief referral, is the person a client of the information and referral service of the agency?
Yes.
Yeah.
How is the individual counted? Can that be the same? So just think about it. Let's move along. A good agency should be able to provide unduplicated count. Everything flows back to one database communication within an agency. Who are they? In the plan, the agency may have identified a specific target population based on community assessments. We don't want to undercount nor duplicate count. Upon intake and assessment, the agency must collect basic demographic and characteristic data such as age, gender, income, employment, education, disability, level, race, and ethnicity. This data can clarify the income information. For example, information about clients could help you understand the elements that make a difference in one's ability to find and maintain a job. It is prior work history. Could it be age, race, gender, neighborhood, or other factors that affect the successful outcome? It is recognized that these accountability questions are fundamental questions essential to an agency planning and assessment. Because the key point is to attain an unduplicated count. Key point is to collect demographic and characteristic data in a rational manner, linking back to question 1. How many clients are you servicing? Turn over to page 54. And I have pointed to read what services.
What services do you give them? Agencies must determine which client received which services resulting in a specific outcome. Identify how many services are offered, count, and how often services are offered frequency. Be able to recognize and assess the quality of the service offered.
Okay. It is important to determine the relationship between the service and the expected outcome. This is key in the evaluation of effectiveness of the program and producing desired results. Without this information, you cannot determine if the program should be expanded, reduced, or maintained. That's very critical information. Remember, we do not want programs that are producing undesired results. What happens to the client as a result of the service? Craig, can you read number 6?
Page 53.
54.
54.
What happens to the clients as a result of the service? Identify the outcomes to be achieved by the client's participation in the service. Identify the number of clients who are projected to achieve the outcome and the number of clients who actually achieve the outcome. If there is only one service provider, it is easy to link it to an expected outcome or result. It is more difficult to assign or link expected outcomes where multiple services are provided. Keep going.
Yes.
There are 4 possible relationships between provision of services and expected outcomes. One service, one outcome. One service, multiple outcomes. Multiple services, one outcome. Multiple services, multiple outcomes.
The key here is that point to the service, look at your characteristics, demographic outcome, we get back to question 1. Okay, this is important if you want to be able to assess your impact, as different results may be found with different populations. There should be outcomes for each service. It is true that there can be multiple outcomes for a service or intervention, and that sometimes it takes multiple services or interventions to produce a single outcome. But the connection between the service and the outcome is the key to track. Let's move to 55. Start myself. Characteristics of outcome indicators. In our logic model, outcomes are statements of result without numbers. If we are to identify what happens, we need to be able to also define scope of the outcome by establishing outcome indicators. When you start adding numbers, you move from outcome statements to outcome indicator statements. We talked about that yesterday, what we call quantitative numbers. The outcome statement is a general statement of change without numbers, and indicated is a statement of how much something has changed or how many have changed. That's qualitative, and that's the service. Can I have the president to read the indicators contained, the next paragraph?
Okay, when you start adding numbers, you move,
The indicator
the indicator
contains.
contains specific information about the scope of success, how many people changed, how much change was observed, how well was the outcome achieved. Outcome indicators meet all these characteristics: measurable, simple, clear, and understandable, realistic, attainable, manageable, identifies a specific client or group of clients, specify a time frame, measures an end, not a means to an end.
Okay, so when you write your outcome indicators, you want to use these characteristics she just mentioned. Some people refer to the mnemonic word SMART as the way to remember the elements of a good indicator, which covers most of the elements listed above: specific, clear, understandable, measurable, attainable, realistic, relevant to the specific client or group, time specific. Overall, all 4 portions are interrelated and the underlying data is rational. Let's turn over to page 56, identifying income indicators. In the example below, the outcome indicator identify what is observed and what can be measured to verify that a change was achieved. A clearly noted statement indicator will help you define what data will be collected as evidence that the outcome you expect has been achieved. The outcome school success is too broad to allow you to measure it. You must decide what indicates school success. Some ideas are improved grades, which you could measure by a report card, reduced absences, data also on a report card, improved behavior, data to be collected by the teacher, observation. Do you all have any other measures you may use for school success? You think that you can measure school success by?
Report cards.
Okay, thank you. So adding numbers quantify. An indicator of an improved use of English language may include a specific improvement in the use of English, which could be measured, for example, by scores of a basic English skill test, best as standardized test used in English as a second language program. An indicator of increased family functioning may include a specific behavior change, which could be measured, for example, by scores, the Global Assessment Functioning Scale, a standardized scale that is used in the mental health field that helps determine the level of functioning of an individual who is in care. Identifying the indicator requires an even more specificity than what we have above. We need to quantify our expectations. How many students, what is students improved, what is the expected improvement, by how much, how many absences are acceptable, how will you quantify the improved behavior? The indicator will include the number of clients who are expected to achieve the specifically defined change or outcome in relationship to the number who will receive service. It will often include a time frame. So let's go over to page 57. We have some examples of multiple indicators. Example 1, in cases, the outcome achieved by recipients of service may fall along a continuum. We'll go over a few of these. The outcome of employment and training services to 50 clients is attaining a job. The primary indicator is 10 out of 50 clients attain full-time jobs above minimum wage, including benefits and are employed 90 days after placement. And we have other indicators could include, and this is multiple indicators, 20 out of 50 obtain permanent full-time jobs at a minimum wage without benefits and are employed 90 days after placement. Example 2, in other cases, where referrals to other services may be involved, there may be multiple outcome indicators that cross a number of domains. And the outcome of providing case management service to 20 families could be self-sufficiency. The range of indicators could include 3 out of 20 families increase their household income by 20% or more from all incomes. 1 out of the 20 persons open a home-based child care center became self-employed. Here, one person could have achieved a multiple outcome with 2 different results. Okay, so this page shows the interaction between the service and activity known as output, such as 50 clients have received employment and training services outcome language. The outcomes such as obtaining a job, and the indicators such as 10 obtain full-time employment. Note that each example includes a neutral item unchanged. The difference between the 2 examples is that the first example, all of the indicators are about one outcome, employment. Often participants achieve several different kinds of outcomes, all of which could lead to increased self-sufficiency. This is demonstrated in example 2. Note that the term self-sufficiency appears to be defined by the indicator. Be sure to point out both examples, and we did. Let's turn over to page 58. We are at an activity. So we're gonna do an activity here. What are our outcomes indicators? Consider the needs identified in module 2 and the outcome strategies you identified in module 3. How can you redefine the outcomes to include projected targets, identified indicators, and time frame? So we're gonna go over here to service. And we have our service, we said provide rent and mortgage assistance and money management training. So we need to do a time frame as to when you think we could actually have this done. A year, 6 months? What do you all think? Would you agree 6 months? Raise your hand.
Step back.
Yeah, we are providing rent and mortgage assistance and money management training. So the customer has to go to, because we have our mission statement and our need. So now we're trying to perform a service. So how long?
I say 6 months.
6 months, we all agree 6 months. So we're gonna post that on our board. And how many people you think will be in the class? The training, the training class?
6. Is that too small?
20, not 20.
20?
You want a reasonable?
But
10
15?
out of 10.
15?
How many agree?
100
15.
men.
How many agree with 50? How many agree with 50?
50 too many.
Too many.
Because I need 50.
How about 25?
Okay.
Okay.
We agree 25.
See how them 25 do for the first.
And how many
10
gonna
out
achieve the outcome?
of 10 out of 25.
Will achieve money management training? Okay. So then we're gonna post on the wall, on the logic model. Okay. Let's move on to page 57.
We did 57.
Okay, we are on to 58, I'm sorry. We did 58, so we're on 59. Okay, we're on implementation of national indicators of community action performance. You will make a connection between ROMA outcome indicators and the national performance indicators. The national performance indicators are a set of outcome statements that are quantified by each agency that is reporting. The national performance indicators produce a data regarding the number of individuals served and the number achieving outcomes. The time frame is the program year. Therefore, the national PIs use the same formula as identified for the creation of an agency-owned indicators. This page provides the historical context for the MPIs as instituted in 2004. The MPIs were arranged by the 6 national goals with indicators related to each of them listed. As of January 2017, with the approval of the CSBG annual report, the MPIs have been revised and amended. They are now community level MPIs and CNPIs. The family level MPIs and the FNPIs found in Module 3 and 4, respectively. More information about the wording of the AR MPIs can be found in the NASCAP website, www.nascap.org. Note that in all the AR, all of the MPIs were asked for both number served and the number achieving outcome. While only a few of them have had it in the past, the signals of greater emphasis on being able to use indicators in both management and accountability activities in an agency. There are no agency-level MPIs. The items identified in the proper IS report for national goals 4 and 5 were considered to be related to outputs and not outcomes. These items are now found in the AR Module 2. they are not identified as indicators. Okay, so, such as the facts that using MPIs balance the localized nature of the work, of its work and outcomes with the need to create more uniform and accurate national accounting. The national performance indicators are about community action, not just the community service block grant. That's important. Outcomes should be counted and reported from all relevant community action programs and activities. So this page identifies 92 indicators and sub-indicators in the original set of MPIs. Let's move over to page 59. So remember, as stated earlier, this is not about community service block grant, but it's about the entire agency. And on page 59, the implementation of national indicators of community action performance. Initially, this area was confusing when it came to community action reporting system. In 2005, the Office of Community Service moved to institute the first mandatory reporting standard system for reporting for community action reporting MPIs. And we're gonna go to our last page, is it 70, is it 61? 60. We're gonna skip over.
Okay.
We're gonna skip over, let's see. The national performance indicator reflects only a portion of the work and accomplishment of the community action. This is not our complete story, but a selected sample of what we do. Beyond the national performance indicators, community action agencies are encouraged to continue to report annually on their full range of outcomes, in addition to reporting on the required national indicators. Okay, the national performance indicators reflect only a portion of the work accomplishments of community action. This is not our complete story, but selected sample of what we do. Community action agencies are encouraged to continue to report annually on their full range of outcomes, in addition to reporting on required national indicators. There are other categories in each of the domains areas where agencies are invited to include additional indicators. So we're gonna go over our key points for today. Module 4, implementing the plan. A plan must be well written, clear and realistic if it is to be implemented effectively and efficiently. The final plan should be appraised periodically and changed as circumstances arise, as it is to be used as a guide to implementation, not just put on the shelf. Implementation of a plan needs a good communication system to support it. The concept of outcome indicators was introduced. The indicator is used to quantify the expected results. How many will succeed in achieving the results? Out of the total number served, what is the expected time frame for success? I would like to thank you all for your assistance in our outcome indicators. You have been good listeners. And now I'm going to turn it over to Brother Nettles.